Okay, we're live. Happy Friday. Welcome to Gentle Friday Yoga with Hands to Heart Center. Today we will be doing a nice little practice to kind of slow down at the end of the week. I'm just going to tilt my camera a little bit here. So really quickly, just who we are, what we do. Hands to Heart Center is a nonprofit based out of Boston that shares the healing practice of yoga with those suffering with trauma, addiction, and poverty in the greater Boston area. So this is our project with the Boston Public Library, and we want to thank them for partnering with us on this. Quick little thing about myself. My name is Julie. I am a 200-hour RYT, which is a registered yoga instructor, and I teach Hatha Yoga. So Hatha Yoga is quite literally sun moon yoga is what it translates to. The cool thing about Hatha is that it's pretty gentle. So what we'll do, we'll start with some breathing. We'll start with a couple of standing poses, some core, some seated poses, a little bit of a challenge at the end, and then we'll end with a nice long shavasana. So that being said, let's talk about setting up our space for a second. So you can kind of find wherever feels good. For you, I have my mat out. I'm sitting, I'm just going to tilt the camera a little bit more. I like to sit with one foot slightly in front of the other. It's just a little bit more comfortable for me. Just taking a second here. So with our practice, we always start with pranayama. So pranayama is what we talked about. It's this breath. So when we're thinking of pranayama, the first one we'll try is Bhastrika, which literally translates to bellows breath. So keeping that in mind, kind of open up your seated position just a little bit. Feel like you have some room. You really don't want to be pressing down on anything. You want to feel nice and open and lifted. So once you feel like you're in a good position, once you feel like you can actually breathe, just take a couple normal breaths here. Maybe settling in. Maybe this is the first time today that you've really brought yourself back to your body. And for the first couple of breaths, just really focus on grounding into where you're seated. So that being said, maybe you want to shift a little bit. Maybe something feels tense or uncomfortable. Maybe you swap one foot out for the other, just in your stance so that you have a little bit more space. But wherever you are, just kind of feel like you're sinking into the mat here, right? So this is your space around you. You have a nice solid foundation to start. And as you continue those breaths, instead of thinking about breathing deeply, think about breathing pretty mindfully, right? So what that actually means, thinking about as you inhale and as you exhale. Maybe you're someone who likes to count. Maybe you inhale to 3 and exhale for 5. Wherever you are, finding a little bit of balance, noticing how you're feeling. Right now I feel really, really tense through my shoulders. I'm just going to kind of roll my shoulders out of my ears. And I'll explain the breath that we'll be doing. So Bhastrika, bellows breath. One of my favorites, a great way to start a practice, just because it does warm you up very quickly, and then you're pretty much ready to flow. So what we'll do, take a nice big inhale. I'm going to flip my palms so that they face up. So it's almost like I'm saying hi to the ceiling, the sky, whichever. And I'm going to decide to just maybe bring my thumb and my pointer finger just like this and keep the rest of my fingers straight out. This is totally a personal choice. You don't have to do this. You can literally stay palm stays up, palm stays down. It really doesn't matter. You just want to make sure you have a little bit of a bend in the elbows and some space to move through your shoulders, through your chest, so you feel like you're open and moving around. So that being said, when you take a nice inhale through the nose, we'll be going through the nose and out the nose with this breath. So that being said, we'll inhale through the nose really deeply. And then once you hit that top of your inhale and you're ready to exhale it out, you'll also do it through the nose, but you'll exhale pretty audibly. So if that sounds weird, it's going to sound a little weird. You'll sound like this. So it does kind of feel weird. Keep that in mind that when we're doing this breath, it's a very mobile, fluid kind of breath. So you'll notice when I go into this breath, I kind of inhale deeply and stretch through my spine. So I look kind of like this. Inhale. I really feel open here. My spine is nice and long. And then as I compress through my belly, I'll breathe out through my nose. I kind of round and I let my chin kind of depress into my chest. Again, these are all personal choices. If the breath feels super weird, you're absolutely welcome to try anything else. This is your space. So if something feels not as great as you thought, or you're really not interested, please just use me as a guide and go off of what feels good for your body. So that being said, we'll try through about 5 rounds of this breath, just because it's a nice way to create some heat in our body and get us into that practice mindset. So here we go. I'm going to flip my palms. Just going to make sure I have some room through my elbows. I'm going to inhale. I'm going to reach the top of my inhale, and I'll think about expelling that air through my nose, but pretty forcefully. So same thing. Inhale. Think about it for a second. Find your exhalation, and then expel it forcefully through your nose. Same thing, we'll do 3 more rounds. Once you feel good and supported, if you don't want to use my cues, that's totally fine. You're welcome to go at your own pace or follow along with me. So here we go. Inhale. Flipping it out through your nose, expelling that air pretty audibly and forcefully. We'll try 2 more rounds. Maybe you decide to flip your palms facing your thighs. Maybe this time it feels like, oh, maybe I could use a little bit more space through my shoulders. So I'm really going to use my palms to press away from my thighs. Inhaling, here we go. Inhale all the way up. Think about it for a second. Exhale through your nose. And last one, this is our last round. Make this one your best one. If it still feels good and if it still feels like something that makes sense for your body, feel free to join me on our last round. Here we go. We inhale. All the way to the top. Exhale it out forcibly. Sit with that for a second. Maybe you notice, maybe you're heating up a little bit. I always feel this breath right in my chest. In my side body, like right here, I feel like I want to do a little bit of a little side stretch to one side and then just crossing over the other. This is just something that my body is asking for. Obviously, all of our bodies are different. So if this feels good, you can join me. If not, you can stay seated with that breath. So I'm just going to move my feet into a different kind of pose here. I'm just going to bring my toes and my heels together to create kind of this butterfly shape. For me, I have very tight hamstrings and very tight hip flexors. So this doesn't always feel good for me, but this is a great way to kind of refresh and remember, okay, I'm on the mat today. I'm safe here. I'm doing my thing. A nice reminder when we do trauma-sensitive yoga, especially with Hands Heart Center, is that you have your own space and no one will come by or touch you or correct you or fix you. So I stay on my mat, you stay on yours, and we do our practice together, but separately. That's one of the things I love about it. That's one of the things that I'm most passionate about. So here we go. We did a little bit of pranayama. We're going to come into a sun salutation, but we're going to start it by doing it halfway. So that being said, you can make your way up to standing. Just so that it feels comfortable, you can stand with your feet about hip width distance apart. It's totally up to you. You'll just find me standing with your arms by your sides. Just gonna move that back a little bit. Okay. So now that I'm kind of in a standing position, I'm just gonna turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna bend my knees a little bit. Inhale and sweep my arms all the way up overhead. And as I exhale, I begin to bend over. So I really hinge at my hips here. I bend over and I find this nice little forward fold just of a halfway lift. So when I feel like I've had enough stretching here, I'm gonna look forward. Nice deep inhale. Exhale, fold over completely. For me, this means bending my knees a lot. If it doesn't look like that for you, that's totally fine. Remember that our bodies look different. Nice deep breath out. Inhale, up, halfway lift. You can let that go. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, maybe let it go. Inhale your arms out wide. and lift all the way up. So the great thing about that, that quick little exercise is it's very easy and it's very slow. So something we're focusing on today is just that gentle movement that feels really good. It feels good in our respective body. So that being said, you're going to do that 3 times. I will cue you through it. I'm just going to grab a sip of water and you can meet me on your mat. So here we go. We're standing same way. I'm just going to move my camera back a little bit just so you can see me a little bit better. So same thing. Here I am. I'm standing about in the middle of my mat. You can stand at the top of your mat, wherever it feels good for you. You can look forward, bring your arms down by your sides. I'm going to turn to the side in a minute, so don't worry, you'll see me. I'm going to inhale, extend my arms out to the side and up overhead. As I start to bring my palms through hand center, I'm going to fold over. So here I am about halfway. Option always to use some blocks if that makes it easier for you or more accessible. Exhaling here. Inhaling, holding your breath for a second. Exhale, folding over completely. This can mean bending your knees a lot. It's totally up to your practice. So here I go. Exhale, bending over. Inhale, lifting up halfway. Finding that nice, long, straight spine. If you ever in your practice feel like you're curving like this, take a second and check in and maybe offer yourself some yoga blocks. Yoga blocks are great. Even I like to keep a little something I can use. This is literally a Jenga game, but it's the perfect height for me if I needed a little bit of extension through my spine. So same thing, here we are with our long, flat spine. Taking a second, focusing in, making sure that we're in the right spot. Exhale. Inhale, arms out wide or up like this. Coming back through standing. I'll cue through it one more time, just so that we can get the general feel for it, and then we'll do it once on our own. Again, it is definitely a flow, so it goes along with your breath. So if you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I forgot to breathe, it's okay. Give yourself a second and jump right back into it. So here we go. Finding that nice little standing position here. My feet are about hip width distance apart. I'm making sure I'm not kind of pressing or squeezing anything. So I'm just kind of staying where I am. Inhale, I'm going to raise my arms up overhead this time. Exhale, I'm going to fold over, hinging at my hips. If it helps to have your hands at your hips, that's perfect. Here's your halfway fold here. You're welcome to go all the way down if it feels good. If not, you can stay in this shape. Exhale, folding all the way over, maybe bending your knees here. For me, that means bending my knees a lot. Inhale up halfway, finding that long, flat spine. If you ever feel like I'm curving, I'm rounding, think about bending your knees a lot to get that nice, long, straight spine. Inhale, arms up overhead or out to the side, whichever way you came into it. Whew. Really nice. Last time, I'm going to do it on my own. You'll do it on your own. You will have my cues to go through. If at any point you get lost, don't worry about it. Think of how your body wants to move and go there. Here we go. Inhale, arms come down by the sides. Exhale, let it go. Inhale, arms up overhead or out to the side. Exhale, bringing palms to heart center, folding all the way over. Long, flat spine here. Inhale brings you to look forward. Check out your space here. Exhale, let your head fall. Big bend in your knees if that feels good for you. Exhaling here. Inhale, come back up through that halfway lift position. Maybe this means keeping your knees as bent as they were in a forward fold. Let it go. Inhale, arms up overhead or out to the side. Whew. And come down to your mat and take a seat. So we've done a little bit of a flow. And as always, we'll come back to a little breathing exercise. So again, you can kind of mimic that same position that you were sitting in when we first started our breathing exercises. This one will be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit of a cooling breath. So when we do really intense movement, we always need to kind of focus in on our body and pull ourselves back. So in order to do that, I'm gonna uncross my legs. I'm gonna keep my palms about mid-thigh. I wanna have a little bit of space here. If this feels weird, maybe I flip my palms up like this. Maybe I just kind of keep them out to the side, resting on my knees. Wherever you are, noticing what you are looking for in your body right now. Noticing if you're holding onto your breath. Noticing if it feels natural or if it feels kind of stilted. Maybe it feels stuck in your chest. So this breath is called Shitali. Shitali is a good one. It is a cooling breath, absolutely. So what we'll do here is focus on essentially, imagine that you're sucking in through a straw. So when we suck in through a straw, or maybe curl our tongue if that's easier for you, thinking about inhaling through the mouth. So instead of through the nose like we did in Vastrika, we'll think about inhaling through the mouth like this. We hold it at the top, and then we exhale through the nose like we did in Vastrika. So it sounds kind of weird. The first time you do it, it might feel a little bizarre, but going forward, it's a really nice breath that kind of helps us focus in and cool our body, especially once that we did that first vigorous movement. We started to feel like, okay, we're starting to create some heat. So we want to slow it down and make it a little bit more accessible for our body. So breathing normally here. Maybe just letting all that stale air out for a second. I always like to take a second right before I start these breathing exercises to make sure I actually have a hold of my breath. Rather than just jumping in, I find it's a little bit easier to jump in and then be totally winded as we're practicing the breath repetition. We want to make sure that we are not doing that. We want to make sure we have an open breath sequence. Whew. So here we go. If you can curl your tongue, you're more than welcome to curl your tongue. I cannot, so I think of inhaling like sucking in through a straw. This motion seems to help me a lot, so that's usually what I go to when I'm cueing through it. So I'm going to inhale here. At the top of my inhale, I flip it to an exhale through my nose. It's a lot less forceful than Vastrika. So keeping that in mind, let's try it again. Inhale like sucking in through a straw or by curling your tongue. Reach the top of that inhale. Flip it through your nose, not as forceful, and let it go. Continue. Oh, hi, buddy. Trying it again. The same thing. Inhaling, like sucking in through a straw. Finding the point of that inhale and flipping it back to your nose. Noticing how that feels in your body. We'll go for 3 more rounds. So at your own pace, whatever way it feels good for you in your body. If you're not liking sitting like this, if you don't really want to cross your legs, if you want to literally uncross them and put them out in front of you, if you want to kind of sit just kind of to the side like this, wherever it is that feels good for you on your spine, in your hips, absolutely take that position. So we'll go for 3 more rounds, like I said. Oh, there might be another. Oh, there it is. Okay. Inhaling through our nose, inhaling through our mouth, like sucking in through a straw, or curling your tongue, whichever way it feels best for you. Here we go. So we're going to inhale all the way up. Flip it through your nose, not as forcefully. We're just kind of letting it go. Notice my chin kind of depresses as I exhale. That's totally up to you, and that's kind of a technique choice. So it's really whatever feels best for you. Let's do 2 more times. Noticing that kind of cooling sensation. You kind of think of your body as a line of energy. I always picture this breath as being right down the center line of my body and feeling very cool very quickly. So here we go, 2 more rounds. Inhaling, like sucking in through a straw or curling your tongue, either or. Inhale, here we go. Flip it through your nose. We'll do 1 more time. But before we do that last one, just sit with it for a second. Notice how that's feeling. Notice if you are starting to feel that, like, okay, one line of energy through my body. Okay, we'll go into our last one. Same thing, we've done it before. So we inhale like sucking in through a straw or by curling the tongue. Inhale, here we go. Through the nose, exhale. So we kind of calmed our body down. We kind of, reset that kind of fight or flight. We were like, okay, we're calming down, we're all right. It is literally, if we think of our body as having a line of energy with our breath, we can think about using that as a powerful tool to focus on what we're trying to get out of our breath sequences. So like when we did Bastrika, we were moving around a lot. We were doing some big inhalation through our shoulders, really extending through our spine. And then as we were exhaling, we were forcing everything out pretty forcefully. So that was a lot. If you think of Bastrika, it means bellows breath. So bellows as in something we use to stoke a fire, right? So it makes sense in our body. It totally makes sense. As we exhale, we kind of compress through our abdominals and express that air out. But keeping that in mind, then doing something like Shitali is very different because instead of heating up our body, it's cooling us down. So just taking a second with that. You're more than welcome to sit here. You can take a child's pose if that feels good for you. At this point in our practice, before we do our kind of heavy flowing, I guess you could call it, before we really get into it, I just like to offer a second here where you can check in with your body, make sure everything feels okay before we move into it. So right now I'm just going to offer a child's pose. We'll come back to it after we finish the second flow. But when you're ready, you can meet me on your mat, standing up, feet hip width distance apart. So I'm going to start from the back of my mat. Okay. So what I'm going to do is kind of the same thing as we did. It'll involve a lot of the same standing up straight, halfway folds, folding over completely, inhaling, halfway lift, etc. But we're going to add in a couple different things, and I'll cue you through all of them. So following my lead, arms down by your sides. Let that breath go. Inhale, arms up overhead or out to the side. I'm going to choose out to the side. Exhale, bend at your hips. Fold over completely. Let all that stale air out. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, step back through downward facing dog. This might be your first one of the day, so definitely honor that in your body. See what your body is asking for. For me, I need to pedal out my legs. Definitely feel a little bit of tightness in my hamstring, so I'm just going to kind of pedal side to side. When I feel like I'm in a good spot, when I feel like I'm okay, I'm just going to exhale and come down onto my knees in tabletop. So with a neutral spine, I'm not rounding it and I'm not kind of letting it dip like this. I'm going to look forward, exhale, and come down through essentially a chaturanga, but a lot more modified. So I'm going to exhale and let my chest come between my palms. Press everything back. Here you are, ready for a cobra pose. Inhaling to lift up. This may be a baby cobra for you. Remember what is accessible to your body. Exhale, let it go. Coming back through tabletop. Curling those toes underneath you. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, lift those hips to the sky. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, walk the feet to meet the hands. Forward fold. As always, you can use some blocks. I'm just going to grab 2 of my blocks here. And this is just a nice reminder that when we're in forward fold, it doesn't have to be a complete, without blocks, forward fold. It can be anything that feels good for you. Remembering that it's not a modification, it's a personalization. Moving those blocks if you had them. Exhale, folding all the way down again. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, we've done it before. Walk back through downward facing dog. Taking some nice deep breaths here. Maybe you decide to lift one leg and open up through the hip. Maybe you decide to do a little bit of a three-legged dog. Wherever you are, allowing yourself some time to really focus in on what feels good for you today. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, drop the knees to the mat. Inhale, look forward, reset. Exhale, bringing your chest between your palms on the mat. Inhale, lifting through cobra. This time I'm going to decide to do a baby cobra. So my palms don't really leave the mat very much. Exhale, coming up through tabletop. Curling the toes underneath you. Downward facing dog. Little addition here, so keep an ear out for this. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, step to the top of your mat, using those blocks if needed. Letting it go, maybe bending your knees. Inhale, slowly roll up so that we're in this kind of position that we started with. From here, you're going to inhale and bring your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands through heart center. Hinge at the hips, folding right over. For me, it's just easier to come to my blocks. It feels a lot easier for me on my back at the end of a long week. I might even take a little bit of a bend through my knees. From here, I'm going to decide to get rid of the blocks. Exhale, step back, downward facing dog. Pedaling it out. This is our slow flow of the day. Once you get into the rhythm, it starts to feel pretty natural, and it matches with our breath. Exhale, drop those knees to the mat. Little bit of a tabletop here. I know you don't have the camera in front of you, but I'm checking in and I'm seeing, okay, I could put a cup of water on my back and it wouldn't tilt, it wouldn't fall off. Looking forward, inhale here. Exhale, dropping your chest between your palms, almost like you're framing your chest with your palms. Letting everything go. Inhale, slowly rolling up to a cobra pose. But from here, we'll do a little bit of modification. We'll come up onto our forearms. This is our Sphinx pose. Sphinx pose is really great for the shoulders. It's also really nice on the spine. Without like throwing your neck back, kind of looking forward. Deciding when you feel like, okay, I've had enough of this pose. And maybe letting it go, pressing up through tabletop. Inhaling to reset. Exhale, curling the toes, lifting all the way up, downward facing dog. Big exhale here. Sometimes I like to come up onto my toes just to feel that nice stretch through the bottom of my foot, through the ball of my foot there. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, walk the feet to meet the hands. And come for a seated position on your mat. Taking a second here. From our nice seated position, that was the most flow that we will get. You are more than welcome to walk your hands forward until you feel a little bit of a stretch. And surrender your forehead to the mat in child's pose. Child's pose can also look like having your arms behind you, compressing, and being a little bit more compact. Wherever you are, I would encourage you to take a few breaths here. Just kind of reset our body. Slow down the heart rate. Remind ourselves that we're still breathing. Keeping in mind all of the benefits of these poses. From here, you're more than welcome to lift your forehead off the mat. Just look forward and start to bring your left hand walking over your right in a kind of hand over hand, nice little side body kind of stretch here. Not really twisting, but just a little bit of a stretch. Keeping in mind what is comfortable on your neck here. Exhale, walking those hands back. So right over left, left over right, coming back through the center. Exhale, this time we'll go over to the left. So I'll bring my right palm over my left palm out to the side. Whew. Nice little side body stretch this time on my right side. Exhale, left palm goes over right. Right palm reaches out to the front of the mat. Exhale, let it go. Forehead comes down to the mat. Taking a couple of breaths here. With our forehead pressed into the mat. As a quick reminder that we are supported. Quick reminder from that third eye, the space between your brows, that your seat of intuition is supported by the universe. Maybe taking 2 more breaths here. Notice when you start to feel like, okay, this feels good. I've had enough. I'm ready for the next pose. At your own pace, and if you feel ready, we'll come back up to a standing position, however is easiest for you. And we'll come into a little bit of a tree pose, but it'll be kind of modified. So tree pose, when we see it on cue cards and mugs and t-shirts, kind of looks like they just go into it here. But from there, we'll actually kind of slow it down a little bit. So I'm just going to step over here. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to start to shift the weight into my left standing leg. From here, I'm going to sweep my right toe very close to my left foot. I'm going to inhale to pull that right foot off of the ground, just so that it's still on the inside of my left shin. I'll inhale it up, not so that it's hitting my knee, it's going to be just above my knee. Notice how my balance is feeling. Maybe you'd like to take it one step further and tuck your foot into that hip crease of the left side. For me today, I think I'm going to go with the lowest version here. I'm going to keep my toe just off of the ground. I'm going to bring my hands to my hips. Bringing my hands to my hips keeps me aware of not twisting over to one side. And remembering to have my breath not just catching in my chest. One more breath here. Maybe you lift up your foot just once more. Exhale, letting it go, coming back through center, maybe shaking out through the legs. Starting to feel like your left foot tenses up a little bit. We'll switch to the other side. Shifting over to the right, same thing. Sweeping that left toe to the inside of the right. Sitting with it for a second, realizing what your body's asking for. Maybe you keep one toe on the mat. Maybe you lift up a little higher. Maybe you lift up just above the knee. Maybe you take it a step higher. Maybe you tuck your foot right across that hip crease of the left leg. Wherever you are, taking a moment here. One more breath. Maybe starting to shift out of it. Exhale, let it go. Just going to fold over so I can let my spine kind of relax and come to a seated position on your mat. This time we'll come back through butterfly pose, just like we did at the beginning of class, just to get a little bit of a stretch. This time think more about extending in your spine. So when I say that, I literally mean inhaling to lengthen your spine. And as you exhale, not necessarily crawling, but just kind of letting your body relax a little bit. Same thing, inhale all the way up. Exhale, letting it relax a little bit. Noticing the difference here between letting your spine relax and coming into this kind of hunched position. We don't want the hunching sensation. We want to stay nice and open. From here, I'm going to go into rocking the baby, which is a fun pose that really brings us across the midline of our body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab for my right leg here. It's going to sound a little funky, but just go with me. I'm going to put my right foot into the crease of my left elbow. So just kind of tucking myself into this position where it essentially looks like I'm rocking a baby. From here, I'll move my leg side to side just to cross over my midline and back. I don't really want to bring it forward just because that doesn't really feel good on my body. If that feels good for you, if you want to go a step further, you're more than welcome to. For me, what feels good is a nice kind of sweeping gesture, kind of circling here, really opening up through that hip. Maybe you want to pull your leg closer to you. Oops. Exhale, let it go. Maybe one more breath here. I like to kind of clasp my hands here. It's a little bit easier because it feels kind of awkward if I don't. Exhale, let it go. You can gently set your right leg down. We'll swap it. We'll go for the left side. So same thing. That left foot is going to end up in the right crease of your elbow. Finding the area where this is accessible to you. If this doesn't feel as good, you're more than welcome to just hold your foot in your right hand here, and then maybe just cross it over your body like this. Wherever you are, doesn't matter because I cannot see you. This is your practice. I am merely here to facilitate and give you suggestions. Same thing, I'm kind of doing that like sweeping motion. It feels very like, I don't want to say circular, but it feels very fluid as I'm doing this. As I'm pulling my leg across my midline and back, I'm definitely feeling a little bit of a stretch, but not so much where it's uncomfortable. And not so much where I'm at the point where it isn't feeling beneficial. If this is a little bit tighter on one side, that's normal. Our bodies are not equal. Our bodies are not symmetrical. So one side may feel different than the other. One more breath here and setting it down to meet the other side. Whew. I always want to do a little bit of a twist through my spine after that. So I'm just kind of bringing my chest close to the ground and then extending through my left arm here and opposite, extending through my right arm. Whew. Just to feel that nice openness. We'll move into a quick core exercise just to kind of light up the inner fire, the Agni, to just kind of remember that yoga is very much a practice. And there are moments that should feel a little difficult, even in a beginner class. So here we go. We're going to come into Nokasana. So Nokasana is boat pose. So I like to keep my arms out in front of me, kind of like this. You may prefer to have your arms out to the diagonal, kind of at like a 45-degree angle, wherever you are. Inhale, sit up straight. Notice how your spine feels. Make sure you're not rounding over like this. We want to keep this nice, long, flat spine for this exercise. Inhaling, looking forward. I'm going to grab underneath my thigh, and I'm going to kind of lean back. So as I'm leaning back, my toes start to come off of the floor. Maybe they just sweep close to me. Wherever you are, find that position where you feel that engagement of your abs. You feel like, oh, wow, I'm really working here. If you find it earlier on, totally fine. Sit with that moment and sit with what feels good versus what isn't helping your body. So here we go. Maybe you decide to lift one leg and then lift the other. Wherever you are, you're always available and able to keep 2 toes on the ground here. Maybe you decide to sweep your arms out in front of you and lift those feet off of the mat. You should feel that core light up just the second that you take those feet off the mat. If you decide to lift your legs a little bit more, maybe you straighten your legs. If you're feeling extra ambitious today, I'm going to try it, but I'm definitely feeling that in my hip flexor, and my abs are definitely kind of on fire right now. Exhale, sit up, rocking out of it. Nice little butterfly pose, right? That's why we did the butterfly pose. It preps us for that, and it's a nice way of kind of counterbalancing what we just did. We'll go into it one more time just so that we feel that burn through the core. Last time, I promise, and then we'll move on. Just so that we have a moment where things feel like, okay, this is a practice. Here is the moment of difficulty. So here we go, coming into that nice straight spine, sitting nice and supported. Arms out in front of you. Exhale, rocking your spine back a little bit, noticing where the engagement is, lifting the feet off of the mat if that's accessible for you. Sitting with it, feeling your abs light up. Two more breaths. One more breath. Exhale, come out of it, rocking forward. Whew. Nice big butterfly pose here. Resetting through the hips. Whew. I'm going to turn back to face you. Oof. That's a good one. That one always makes me feel like I have a little bit of heat, which is a nice feeling. Amazing. So before we go down onto our spine, we'll just kind of sit with all of the work that we did, being aware of how it feels in our body. About 45 minutes into our practice, noticing what feels good, noticing if we even feel a little bit of fatigue, noticing that's not a bad thing, noticing that finding therapy and movement is not a bad thing at all. One more second here. Our next pose is going to be a bridge pose, and I'm going to encourage you to bring a block or a book that's about 4 inches thick with you as you come down onto your back. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing. Tilt my angle a little bit further down. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to bring my block with me just because there's a really nice refreshing pose that's used in a lot of restorative classes that is best with a block. So, putting my block to the side for a second, I'm going to extend all of my fingers and bring them down to the mat. So my palm is against the mat. So from here, I'm going to find my middle finger and just brush the middle finger on the back of the heel. This is what the alignment should feel like in your bridge pose. In Hatha Yoga, this is what it looks like. As I inhale, I'm going to lift my pelvis off of the ground and find the place where, I'm definitely working. Inhale a little bit more, come up a little bit higher. Notice what your stance is doing. Notice if it feels weird. Maybe you need to step a little bit further away from your spine, away from your fingertips. Exhale, let it go. Taking a second to check in with your body. Notice if something felt weird, if something felt tight. And going from there, if you feel ready, exhale, inhale, lift up, and we'll go back into it. Exhale, let it go. Here's a nice little restorative move. If this isn't feeling particularly good or helpful for your body, you can totally feel free to take your block on its lowest measurement and slide it right underneath the flat part of your spine on your sacrum. This is a nice supported bridge pose so that you don't even really have to lift. You don't even have to really do anything. to kind of lift your body off of the mat. You can really relax into a prop that is literally supporting you in this posture. Exhale, I'm going to take that out from underneath my sacrum. Before we go into a little fetal pose, but this time as we kind of tuck into a tiny ball, you're welcome to kind of windshield wiper your feet side to side. This helps me kind of reset my body. All of these counter poses just really help to cancel out all of the work that we did so that we're being extra cautious of our spine and extra cautious in those twisting movements. Inhale here, you can bring your knees into your chest and wrap your arms around your knees. This is your fetal pose, just supine. So we're literally laying down doing a fetal pose. And as you're ready, you can extend both legs long to the mat again. And you can pull your right leg, kind of bend at the knee here. Pull it into your right armpit. Cross it over to the left side. And then look over to the right. You can bring one arm out long if you'd like to. This is our nice little spinal twist. Again, we always kind of do a twist to reset all of the work that we did. Remembering and figuring out which shoulder it feels best to look over. For me right now, it feels really good to look over my right. Other days, it feels good to just look straight up. One more breath here. Inhale, bringing that right leg back in close to the chest. Exhale, let it go. This time we'll inhale, bend our left knee, Pull it into that left armpit area. Tight, tight, tight. Exhale, twist it over your spine here, crossing it over your body, this time over the right side. Maybe you extend that left arm long. And this time I will be looking at my left arm. If this feels tense on your neck, feel free to look at the ceiling. Looking straight up, resetting all the work that we did. One more breath sequence. Exhale, coming out of it, pulling that left leg in close to the body. Exhale, letting it go. One big, nice pull here, making yourself into a tiny ball. And extending into Shavasana. As a reminder, Shavasana can be taken at pretty much any posture. It is up to you and what feels best on your body. Before we go into a Shavasana, I will offer about 2 minutes for you to explore a pose you've been working on, or maybe just to explore something we didn't touch upon in class. If this isn't for you, you're more than welcome to relax in waterfall posture. So we have our block on the lowest measurement. Same thing, we'll put the block underneath our sacrum. We'll kind of kick our legs up and nestle our sacrum onto the block, letting the legs fall overhead in a way that they feel weightless. You can bend your knees here, you can extend them whichever, so that you feel like your legs are completely weightless coming down in front of your face here. This is what we call waterfall posture, and it's a great way to end a class. It's a great way to really feel all the work that we did while also feeling some restorative work here. I'm just going to come out of it so I can set up my space for our Shavasana. You're welcome to take Shavasana in that pose if that is what your body is asking for. Wherever you are, I'm going to offer meditation with a singing bowl. Something I would say I'm pretty consistent with. So I have my Tibetan singing bowl here. Again, you still have some time. You still have about a minute of just focusing on whatever posture we didn't touch on, something you wanted to try, something you wanted to add into your practice, you're welcome to take that now. Remembering that this is very much your own practice, and I am merely here to facilitate. As you come into your final resting posture, just a reminder to use any props that feel good for you, a reminder to use what you have available to just kind of make it a more pleasant experience for you. With a singing bowl, I like to use it because it's a powerful, powerful meditation tool that holds us accountable and really reminds us to be focused in the moment instead of letting our mind wander to whatever we have to do later, something that happened this week, etc. We've all been in that situation where we're trying to not think about anything and then bam, we start thinking about 4 other things. Something I really love about the singing bowl is it's quite literally vocal. So if I tap it, you're going to hear it. And you're going to think, oh yeah, okay, let me come back to my body. Let me come back to where I was. So as you're ready, once you find your most comfortable position for Shavasana, I'll just start with some light tap of the singing bowl. Just to kind of allow that reverberation to fill your space. Try to feel it in your body. Letting yourself come back to the place where we started class. That place of curiosity, maybe even a little bit of anxiety if that came up for you, so you didn't know what to expect. Place of excitement even. Kind of allowing yourself to literally melt into the mat. This is a cue I've used all throughout class. I said, let the mat support you. Let gravity do its job. And as that's happening in the body, start to feel like not only are you resting on your mat, but your mat is pressing up against you to support you. Starting to kind of regulate your breathing here. It's very helpful if you are laying on the mat, because what you can do is take one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly and start to notice those really deep belly breaths. You know it for sure that it occurs because as you fall asleep, that rise and fall of the belly is a huge clue that you are in your diaphragmatic breathing. Giving yourself some grace here if your mind does start to wander. Maybe realizing if your thoughts start to kind of go off on their own. Keeping that sense of clarity, or maybe just thinking about the practice that we just did. For me right now, I start to feel a little bit colder in my body. My core temperature starts to decrease a little bit as I'm just kind of sitting with my breath. Remembering that this is the easiest and the hardest pose, I think, in all of yoga, because there's so much of a mental piece to it that I think we often forget. in these times of unrest and unknown everything, I think it's important to kind of sit with our body and allow ourselves some time to kind of evaluate everything that's happening right now as we live through a global shared trauma. Very much not in normal times, if we can even say that anymore. We can use practices like yoga to kind of pull our mind back and focus on the things that we can control. Even if just for today, that is our breath, our movement, the thoughts that we're thinking just for the moment. Keeping this nice, supported posture, just feeling totally and utterly relaxed in whatever posture that may be. Starting to kind of wake up fingers and toes, maybe just wiggling, maybe coming back to the breath, starting to feel that sense of contentment. Maybe you choose to roll over to one side. I always choose to roll over onto my right side. And I kind of prop up my head with my arm long, and then I have one hand pressing against the mat to kind of almost in like a fetal position with my knees tucked into my chest, as if you were waking up for the first time to start the day. Giving awareness to all of the sensations you may have experienced through class. And giving your body some permission to rest. As you are ready, you can meet me in a seated position, facing me, turn to the side, still laying down, whatever feels good for you. We'll end our practice here, but not before we do a final little check-in with our breath here. Just noticing if we are holding on to it, if we are really not wanting to let go, if we feel winded, noticing how that feels in the body. And then finding a comfortable position for you, realizing what is comfortable for you may be totally different than for me, etc. For me, I'm gonna find a nice little side sit. And we'll take a moment here, now that we've kind of focused in on the body. We just want to do one last moment of community here. So we'll inhale, and on our exhalation, we will come back to that reverberating sound of Om, universal sound of peace. I'm going to bring my hands to heart center. I'm going to inhale, closing my eyes, inhale through my nose. Thank you for joining me for class today. Thank you for making time for yourself and choosing to practice some self-care in these ever so uncertain times. Thank you for being a student, a teacher, The love, the light in me honors the love, the light in you. Namaste. As always, you're more than welcome to follow along with my teaching schedule. Hands Heart Center, I believe I'm back in April, the first Friday of April, I believe it is the 2nd. And then I am back also in May. So feel free to follow along with my classes. If you'd like to follow me outside of Hands Heart Center, my personal Instagram is @JulieDoesYoga, where I talk about some pretty cool stuff. So if you'd like to follow along, you can find me there. Other than that, have a wonderful weekend. Remember to practice self-care and focus on your breath. Thank you.